Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 1 says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us." Let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Now, today I'm finishing up a message that I started last week called Clearing Brush. Clearing Brush. If you weren't here last week, I would encourage you to go online, to go to YouTube and watch this message. All of our services, all our messages are online. And I would encourage you to go and catch up, in particular on this one, because I believe it's a word that's going to speak to you right in the middle of whatever you may be going through. The premise of the message is very simple. Valerie and I moved into another house a couple of months ago. And in our backyard, we've got these ginormous trees, huge trees, but underneath and in between is all this underbrush. And I began to clear this brush because I was afraid that the brush is taking water and resources from these big trees. And I need these big trees to be strong and healthy. I need them to stand, because if they fall, they're going to crush my house. So I want these things healthy and strong. This underbrush is stealing resources, and I started clearing that brush out, literally, but I believe the Holy Spirit tapped me on the shoulder as I was doing that and said, we need to clear out the brush in our lives as well. We need to clear out the brush in our spiritual lives. And so I asked you a few questions last week to help you, as I'm doing, determine what might be brush in our lives. What are the things that we need to clear out of our lives? So here's one question to ask yourself. What are the areas of your life that don't really add anything? They just steal strength from what's really important. What is it that's not adding value in your life? It's only taking time and energy and resources from the big trees in your life, your family, your relationship with God, your health, your financial health, all of those kinds of things. Figure out what those big trees are, and then figure out what are the things that are preventing you from achieving your best in those areas of your life. Here's another question. What's draining you spiritually? What's draining you emotionally or financially or in your relationships? What are those things that are just a drag on you? Or how about this? What's that area of your life that you know is not pleasing to God? That area of your life that you know you need to deal with, but you've been avoiding it because it's too difficult, or it's too intimidating, or it's too uncomfortable. Those are the things that I believe the Holy Spirit is showing us that we need to begin to clear out of our lives. We need to get them out. So let me review, if you weren't here last week, real quickly what the first few observations are, and then I'll finish up in just a moment. The first one is this: clearing brush hurts. Clearing brush hurts. The process is not easy. It's not going to be the most fun you ever had in your life, but it's important. The second thing is this: it didn't have to be this hard in the first place. See, the brush had been growing in that backyard for years before I got there. If somebody had cut it years ago, it would have been much easier for me when I moved in. The point is to take care of the issues while they're small. Take care of the things in your life while they're small. But if you've got brush in your life today, let me just encourage you. It is as small today as it's ever going to be. It's as easy today as it's ever going to be. It just gets harder as it grows more and more. So today is the day. Now is the time to start clearing the brush out of your life. Here's the third thing. Sometimes you miss the obvious. Sometimes you miss the obvious. When you get focused on clearing that brush out of your life, it's easy sometimes to miss some things. Sometimes even the obvious things. So that's why it's important for you to have people in your life who can speak truth to you. People who love you, people who care about you, people who understand you, who will encourage you, but love you enough to tell you the truth in a way that you can hear it, so that you can begin to work on the things that are maybe obvious to everybody else. And here's the last thing where we left last week. Clearing brush is universal. Clearing brush is universal. At some point in our lives, all of us are going to need to clear some brush. I suspect at any given time, there's something for all of us to work on. And all the perfect Christians said, nothing. Yeah, there's something for all of us to work on all the time. I don't care how mature you are. I don't care how long you've been trying to clear brush. There's always something else to work on as we become more and more like Christ. Now, don't be afraid of what other people are going to say when you start working on your issues, because the fact is it just might inspire them. Not inspire them to criticize you or inspire them to judge you, but inspire them to do the same thing in their own lives. So that's the stuff we talked about last week. Here's where we left off, and I want to begin this week. First of all, sometimes one thing is connected to another. Sometimes one thing is connected to another. See, my process in the backyard was pretty simple. I told you, I just went Rambo on it last week and just attacked it. And so what I would do is I'd come to these little trees and I'd cut them as low to the ground as possible. Doesn't that sound like a good plan? That's a good plan. Here's the surprise. Now, it's a little dangerous to do that, especially when you're bald, because you don't know which way the tree's going to fall. So smart people wear a hat. Smart bald people wear a hat. I didn't always wear a hat. I just took my chances because I'm just crazy like that. Right? So I just went and I'd cut as low as I could get, but there were times that it didn't fall. Instead of it falling down, it stood there. It was very bewildering. I thought it was a good plan. I cut it at the root and nothing happened. There were other times that I cut it and it actually sprung up into the air higher than it was when I cut it in the first place. It was very strange. That's when I realized that the cutting and the clearing was not done. That thing was connected to something else. Sometimes it was standing so close to another tree that it didn't have room to fall. And sometimes it was entangled and entwined with a vine or a briar that was actually keeping that thing standing. And when I released the tension at the end, the vine just pulled it higher. You see, life's complicated sometimes. Have you noticed that, or is that just me? Life's complicated. There's issues that we face in our lives that are not standalone issues. I mean, you would think if you cut it at the root, it falls. That's not how life is sometimes. There are issues that are so closely connected to another thing in your life that until you start clearing those things out of your life, you don't realize where the connections are. See, I told you last week about the struggle that I had with depression, seasonal depression every year in the fall. And as it turns out, it was related to the unresolved issues I had around my parents' separation and divorce 15 years before I ever figured that out. But see, here's the problem. I was trying to solve a depression problem when I didn't have a depression problem. So I started treating the symptom. Depression was only the symptom. So for a couple of years, couple of cycles, I thought, well, maybe I'm just run down. Maybe I don't take care of myself. I don't eat right. Y'all know I love Krispy Kreme donuts. So I don't take care of myself. I just need vitamins. So for a couple of seasons, I took vitamins. Didn't help. And then a couple of more seasons, I said, well, I probably got some sort of seasonal allergy. You know how Georgia is. Something's always blooming. There's like 2 weeks out of the year that everything's dead. Then it starts over again. I said, I'm just allergic to something in the fall. So I took Claritin through the fall for a couple of years because I'm slow. It's just taking years. I'm trying stuff. I'm treating the symptom. I'm not ever getting to the root of the problem. When I finally realized what was going on, I realized that the depression was just one little thing that I had clipped. This thing is connected to a whole lot more in my life. You understand? Sometimes things are connected to another. Don't get discouraged if when you start working on the issues of your life, you start clearing the brush out of your life, if those things don't start falling like you expect them to. Just keep working. Just keep clearing. Just keep going. It's part of the process, but you will clear this brush out of your life if you keep after it. Now, if I took a survey of the issues that you face in your life, I'm not going to, so you can relax. But if I did, many of you would say, if you're being honest, that anger is a significant problem for you. Anger is a problem even in the body of Christ. It is certainly a problem in the larger culture. We can't have conversations about any sort of issue without people getting mad at each other and screaming at each other. We can't talk about anything of substance without people trying to get violent about it. We can't have political rallies, Democratic or Republican. We can't have political rallies without people coming and trying to stir up trouble, trying to beat somebody up. We have an anger issue in this country. But let me tell you something I've learned in the last couple of years. Anger is only a symptom of the problem. Anger is a secondary emotion. Anger is evidence that there's something going on inside of us, some need that's not being met, some expectation that's not being fulfilled. And the anger is simply your mind's way of letting you and, unfortunately, everybody around you know that there's something you're unhappy about, something that's going on the inside of you. Here's what I mean. Sometimes you use anger as an attempt to control a situation when you feel like it's out of control. Let me give you an example. Let 3 or 4 things start going wrong all at one time at work. Y'all had those days? Or at home, either way. 3 or 4 things, they're just dogpiling you all at one time at work, and you get angry, and maybe you start yelling at your coworkers, or you start mistreating people around you out of anger. The problem is not anger. The problem is the fact that you feel like things are out of control, and you're using the anger to try to get it back in control, which never works. Or you might use anger to let people know that you feel disrespected. Perhaps your husband comes home and now, not that I have any personal experience in anything like this. This is just what I heard. Perhaps your husband comes home and tells you that he has invited people over for supper tonight. And you flip out on him. And you do that, but not because you have an anger problem necessarily, but because you feel disrespected because he didn't at least give you a heads up first. Right? Guys, please at least let her know before you walk in with the company. Or you're going to be lonely. I'm just telling you that, okay? Or perhaps you use anger to mask insecurity or some sort of past hurt in a certain area of your life. Go back to the job situation. Everything's popping off. Everything's going wrong. And in the middle of that, your anger may be your feeling of insecurity about your ability to deal with those situations right there. You know, if everything's cool or you feel like you're managing, then you don't get angry about it. But when you feel like you're getting overwhelmed and you're beginning to question whether you can handle this or not, you get mad. It comes out as anger. It's actually insecurity. Or you've heard or seen the stereotypical man-hating woman. You don't have to point or volunteer anything, but you've seen that stereotypical woman that hates all men. Behind the angry bravado that she has is a hurt that she's masking with all that anger of some man that hurt her at some point in the past, and she has been unable to deal with it, unable to come to terms with it, and so now she's just hiding it behind the anger. You understand what I'm saying? Sometimes things are connected to other things. It's not as simple as it appears to be. When you start clearing brush out of your life, don't be surprised if things don't just fall. Don't be surprised if things don't just go away. Sometimes things are connected to other things. Keep working on it. Don't give up on it. Just follow it wherever it takes you. And eventually the Spirit will lead you and guide you into truth, even the truth about yourself, and you'll be set free from those things. Now, see, the frustrating part is if you're like me, you just like to get stuff done. Right? You like to do it, and it's done. You work hard on it, you get it done, and you move on to something else that needs to get done. I like to do that, but brush clearing is not that way. Brush clearing is more complicated than that. And it leads me to my next observation, which is this. You have to keep going back again and again. You got to keep going back. When I'd been working for a while, clearing brush, and I was taking a quick break, and I was thinking to myself, well, I'm just going to look back over and see how good this thing looks. Right? I've been working, sweating, bleeding, and I want this thing. I just figure when I turn around, this is going to look like a prairie. It's going to be Kansas out here, man. I've cleared everything. And I turn around, there's stuff everywhere. Out of the section I just walked out of. My blood, sweat, and tears are in that place, and it looks like nobody's touched it. I'm not talking about just 1 or 2 little obvious things that I missed. I mean, it looks like I need to get started again. And that's when I realized this is going to take a minute. This is not going to be as easy and as fast as I was hoping it was going to be. I'm going to have to go back again and again because it seems like you cut and you drag this stuff out and you think you're done, and then you turn around and you had to move brush to see the brush. There's just almost as much to do now as there was when you started. It's like it's growing while you're cutting it. It's very frustrating. It's very confusing. But don't get discouraged as you're clearing the brush from your life if it takes longer than you think it's going to take. See, you can't hear a message like this and get inspired and say, I think I could set aside about an hour and a half this afternoon. I'm going to clear this brush out of my life. Baby, it's going to take longer than that. It's going to take you 2 hours to figure out where the brush is in your life. And a whole lot longer to clear it out. It's a process. You're going to have to go back again. If you're dealing with some sort of anger issue or some underlying issue, you may get it conquered today, and guess what? Tomorrow it's back. And you got to go back in. You say, well, it's connected to something else I didn't see. I thought I solved this problem yesterday. Now I got a different problem. You're going to have to go back again. But you'll do it. It's okay. Just keep going back. Don't give up on it. Don't be surprised when it happens. Now, I told you I would tell you about this guy, so I need to tell you about this guy. A couple weeks ago, bringing the dumpster back, it's Tuesday, bringing the dumpster back from the road, and I was going to put it back where I always put it, and something caught my eye. And so I stopped and looked, and when I looked down, it was about a 5-foot snake right beside where my dumpster goes. I clearly left my dumpster wherever it was when I saw this thing. And I ran in the house and I start getting instruments. You start getting tools of destruction to protect your home. So I grabbed stuff that I thought, man, this is the biggest snake I've seen in a long time. Now, when I glanced at it, I thought at first it was an anaconda. It was stretched into the backyard. It was 1,200 feet long. It was huge. So anyway, when I calmed down, I looked at it again. It was only 5 feet long. Black, little specks all over it. It was ill too. It was really upset with me. So when snakes happen in my life, the two women in my life come out. Valerie on one side, Morgan on the other. Valerie says the same thing every time. Kill it! She didn't have to see it. She don't have to look at it. I don't need to describe it to her. If it's a snake, she wants it dead. Can I get a witness in the house? I thought so. See, we Pentecostals, we're not all about snakes, are we? So we kill that thing. Trying to handle it. We're going to handle it all right. Handled it. Sword of the Spirit or anything else we can grab. So Valerie's a kill it person all the time. Just kill it. Morgan comes out to plead its case. And she wants to save it. She watched the Croc Hunter when she was little, so she wants to save it. Crikey. So Valerie, so she finally just gave up and went back in the house. And then she starts caulking around windows and doors and stuff. So I'm stuck out there with Morgan, just me and Morgan and the shovel and the snake. So I'm trying to coax it. I'm trying to convince it to go away. Wouldn't go away. So I decided I'd name it Elvis because it's a king snake. It was Elvis the king snake. So I finally just scooped him up and I slung him, towards the neighbor's house. So as far as I know, Elvis has left the building, or my yard anyway, and he was heading towards the neighbor's house. I didn't know him, so I didn't warn him. So, nobody warned me. I ain't warning them. It's just how that goes. It's more fun that way. But it did get me thinking. Now, I have had Elvis sightings since then. Stick in the yard, shadows, pine cones, all kinds of stuff remind me of Elvis. I've almost shot in the city limits. I didn't want to go to jail, but I almost shot a stick the other day. But it led me to this observation. Don't be surprised if you stir up some pests. Don't be surprised if you stir up some pests when you start clearing brush out of your life. Matthew 12:43, Jesus said this, when an impure spirit comes out of a person, it goes through arid places seeking rest and does not find it. Now, I'm going to come back to this in a minute and look at it in its fuller context, but for right now, I just want you to notice, when you start changing stuff in your life for the better, stuff gets stirred up and relocated. Okay? Things start changing in and around your life. Now, in the literal physical sense, snakes and mice and rabbits and all kinds of stuff get stirred up when you start clearing brush out of your life. That may or may not be why Elvis appeared in my yard. I don't know. But the point is well taken anyway. Stuff gets, all kinds of creatures get flushed out when you start clearing brush. The same is true in your spiritual life. Jesus said for this person, the brush was a demon. It was an evil spirit, an impure spirit that they had to get out of their lives. You say, well, good gracious, John, I don't have a demon. I don't have a devil. I just got some stuff I need to work on. Well, that's good for you, okay? But the process, the principle is still the same thing. Listen, do you think the enemy is just going to let you walk out of bondage and into freedom without some resistance? You're free because of what Jesus did on the cross, okay? Whom the Son sets free is free indeed. So you're free. You may not be walking in it, but spiritually, positionally, you're free, okay? But as you begin to walk down that road to freedom, the enemy's going to do everything he can do to make it uncomfortable, to make it intimidating, to make it as scary as possible. Here's the good thing about king snakes. They're not poisonous. And they eat the bad snakes. Eat them, run them off. I don't really care how that works. But I hear they keep out the bad snakes. That's why Elvis got to live in my yard. Let me tell you something about the enemy. None of the things that he throws in your path can harm you. They can't harm you. They look scary. They look intimidating. They will make your skin crawl. They will cause you discomfort. But ultimately, they cannot hurt you because you're a follower of Jesus. He is the victory that we have in our lives. He is the king. He's the one who determines what goes on in our lives and what doesn't. He's the one who orders our steps. When you walk in relationship with Jesus and when you walk in freedom and when you clear out the brush from your life, don't get surprised if you see an increase in activity that scares you and concerns you and intimidates you. But don't ever forget that greater is He that's in you than he that's in the world. Don't forget that like the psalmist said, 1,000 may fall at my side, 10,000 at my right hand, but it will not come near to me. The prophet said, no weapon formed against you will prosper. It doesn't mean there won't be a weapon formed. It doesn't mean it won't be used against you. It doesn't mean you're not going to be scared to death sometimes. It doesn't mean you're not going to face some challenges sometimes. I'm not minimizing the things that we face, but God has promised us those things will not harm us any more than a king snake can. And He also promised us we'll never face it alone. That's good news. So keep clearing the brush. Keep clearing it out of your life. But don't be surprised if you encounter a pest or two here and there to intimidate you into quitting so that you don't reach your full potential. Now, here's the last thing this morning. Last observation is this. If you don't maintain it, it's going to grow back. If you don't maintain it, it's going to grow back. As hard as I've worked on that stupid yard, if I walk away and never touch it again, before long it's going to look just like it does now. Or maybe even worse. Let me show you Matthew chapter 12 again. Let's look back at the full context. When an impure spirit comes out of a person, it goes through arid places seeking rest and does not find it. Look what happens. Then it says, the spirit says, I will return to the house I left. When it arrives, it finds the house unoccupied, swept clean, and put in order. Then it goes and takes with it 7 other spirits more wicked than itself, and they go in and live there. And look at this. The final condition of that person is worse than the first. This is how it will be with this wicked generation. Listen, no matter how hard you clean the house, no matter how spotless you get it, no matter how well you clear the brush, if you don't maintain it, it will naturally go back to the previous state. It's important to replace your old bad habits with good new habits. You understand? You can't just quit something unless you start something else. People who struggle with cigarettes, the reason that they have such a hard time is that there are windows of time that they used to smoke that are now unfilled. So after dinner, or when they get up in the morning, or on break time when their buddies are out there smoking, they ain't got nothing to do. And so many times they go right back to what they used to do because they didn't fill it with other things. If God's convicting you about the things that you watch or the things you listen to, something like that, then you better figure out a plan to fill up the time that you used to spend watching those things or doing those things or listening to those things, or otherwise you will naturally revert right back to what it was that you tried to quit. The maintenance part, the replacement part is just as important as the initial clearing. Jesus said, a clean and empty house is an open invitation for bad spirits and bad habits, and you'll be worse off than you were before. See, it's one thing to be bound by something. It is an entirely other thing to have been set free from it and then turn around and walk right back into it. It is one thing to have it just happen to you by virtue of the curse when you're born. It's another thing when you make the decision to go back and be bound by that thing again. It's doubly hard to break. Don't allow yourself to do that. Don't allow yourself to be bound like that. You've got to fill yourself up with the Word of God. You've got to submit yourself and be full of the Holy Spirit of God. You've got to get yourself full of the things of God so that you can stay free from the things that used to have you bound. Remember, greater is He that's in you than he that's in the world. And the more of Him that you get in you, the easier it is for you to stay free. That's why preachers for years have been harping on reading the Bible, praying, coming to church. I wish there was some other magic formula. I wish there was a pill I could give everybody. I wish there was magic in the oil. I'd just come and sprinkle everybody, and everybody'd get it. That's not how it works. It's spiritual disciplines. You pray, you read the Word, you attend church, you give, you participate. That's how you develop the character of Christ, and that's how you walk in freedom. See, one of the reasons a lot of young believers fall is that they know they need to give up a whole bunch of stuff. They know that they can't do the stuff they used to do, and they can't hang with the people they used to hang with. The problem is when you're young in the faith and you just came to the Lord, you don't have a bunch of Christian friends, and you don't know what Christians do, and you don't know what wholesome activities are. And so if you don't very quickly replace those activities and those people in your life, you return right back to what you started. You go right back to what you left. It is graphic. It is gross, and we don't like to quote it because it's so gross. But Proverbs says that a dog returns to its vomit. It's a very graphic way that God is trying to remind us, if you don't replace what you're doing, you're going to go right back to what you used to do. Not because it's good, but because it's comfortable, because it's familiar. What you don't fill up will fill itself. What you don't maintain will grow back. Clearing brush is not a one-time thing. Once it's cleared, you need to watch for any little sign that anything's going to spring up again, and then you crush it. When you see a twig grow, you snatch that thing up by the roots and throw it out. Remember what it took to get cleared out, and then don't let what God clears out of your life come back again. Let's go back to the opening verse, and I'm closing. Hebrews 12:1. Therefore, since we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin, watch this, that so easily entangles. These weights and these sins entangle us very, very easily. John, why are you harping on this stuff for 2 weeks? Because it's so easy. It just happens. Nobody planted brush in my backyard. It just happened. Nobody wanted that to happen. It just happened. You are easily entangled by this stuff. So we've got to be relentless in our pursuit of freedom. Don't let this stuff live, and don't let it come back once it's gone. How badly do you want to be free? What are the things in your life that are sucking the life out of living? What are the things that are stealing resources from what's truly important in your life? That's the underbrush. And it's time to clear it out. See, one of these days, in the next couple of months, when I get the energy and the time to finish this project, I'm going to be able to walk the entire property without tripping on stuff, without cutting my legs up from briars, without running into anything in my path. Those big trees that could crush my house are going to be stronger. They're going to be healthier. We might even create a little seating area out there. We don't know. We have no idea what that might become once we clear the brush out of it. Let me ask you to do this with me. Imagine your life free from brush. Imagine your life without those habits. Imagine your life without those flaws. Imagine your life without those things that keep sucking the resources out of your life. What do you see in your future? How's life going to be for you when the brush gets cleared out? How's that going to feel? What will you be able to do that you've never been able to do before? Get that picture in your mind. See, it's just like the Getting There series back in January. What's your there? Where's there that you're trying to get to? You've got to keep that in your mind as you clear the brush. Clearing brush is exhausting. It's tiring. It's not fun. But it's so worth it when you get there. And you see the fulfillment of the potential that God's placed in your heart now. When you see the dream happen in your life, then you know it was all worth it. Why don't you stand with me today?